Spirituality, the last refuge of a failed human, just another way of distracting yourself from who you really are. Most of the time, people feel okay, probably because at that moment, they're not actually dying. You know what I like about the American form of government? They've worked things out so that you're never far from a 7-Eleven. The 11th law is equity. That's a good thing. Prosopolepsia, that's bad. That's what the Greeks called this shit. If a man is going to be trusted to judge between a man and a man, it's a precept of the law of nature that he deal equally between them. Oh, you're a judge and you're treating this one differently than how you're treating that one? Well, that's not fair. That's not fair. That's not due process. That's not fair and even-handed. What the hell is that? And according to Hobbes, that if you don't have equity, well, then that's the cause of war. That means that judge is biased, and therefore that deters judges and arbitrators. That deters the people going to them. And therefore, that's a cause of war. The 12th law of nature is that all commons used by all equally. Everybody gets equal use of all things in common. All commons are used by all equally. That makes sense. Some things you can divide. There's private property, but if that park is for everybody, then everybody gets to walk around the park, bounce a basketball, smell the roses, do whatever. Nineteenth laws of witnesses. If there's a question of fact and you have two litigants who are contradicting each other, well, you're going to have to give credit to a third or a fourth person, a non-litigant witness, for else the question is undecided and left to force, which is contrary to the law of nature. So you have questions of law and questions of facts. And so two litigants can agree on a whole host of facts, but the parts where they disagree, well, that's where a witness, a third or fourth person who's not of either one, a non-biased witness, would help to determine that question of fact. For else the question is undecided and left to force, contrary to the law of nature. Well, I don't know who is right, who is wrong. I don't have time to figure all this out. The 13th law of nature is of lot, but some things there be that can neither be divided, not enjoyed in common. So the law of nature is saying that if everybody can't share this, then we have to divide it equally. How are we going to divide it equally? The law of nature, which prescribeth equity, requireth that the entire right, or else making the use alternate the first possession. So whoever took it first be determined by lot. So either you took it first, or we take it all and we divide it evenly and then distribute it evenly. For equal distribution is of the law of nature, and other means of equal distribution cannot be imagined. So land reform. Every 10 to 20 years, every 100 years, we should have like an Otto von Bismarck land reform law. The 14th laws of primogeniture, of the first seizing. Of lots there be two sorts, arbitrary and natural. Arbitrary is that which is agreed on by the competitors. Natural is either primogeniture, which the Greeks call kleronomia, which signifies given by lot for the first seizure, and therefore those things which cannot be enjoyed in common nor divided ought to be adjudged to the first possessor, and in some cases to the firstborn, as acquired by lot. 15th law of mediators. It is a law of nature that all men that mediate peace be allowed safe conduct. So when they killed Cornstalk, when the motherfucking rat bastard sons of bitches killed the Shawnee chief Cornstalk, he was there for a peace envoy. He was just there with like two other guys. He wasn't there to invade. He wasn't there to pull no. So they're saying of mediators. If a mediator wants to come into a conflict, a war zone, or in between two people, you should allow that mediator safe passage, safe conduct. Especially if it's a mediator that both parties respect, and it's a mediator that is known to be fair and balanced, even-handed. For the law that commandeth peace, as the end commandeth intercession, as the means, and to intercession the means is safe conduct. He just wanted peace. Also, Jesse Jackson, he always flies over to Yugoslavia, to Iraq, to Iran. Just send some reason. There was some conflict where we had to send Jesse Jackson, or he went on his own because he just cared about the parties involved and wanted to. We also sent to Kim Jong-un. We sent, who is that diplomat that we sent from the Chicago Bulls? Dennis Rodman. So he should have been allowed safe conduct too when he was there to mediate peace. Which, a basketball game, it was a ping pong game that brought China and Nixon together. 16th law of submission to arbitration. And because, though men be never so willing to observe these laws, there may nevertheless arise questions concerning a man's action. First, whether or not it were done. Secondly, if done, whether it were done or not done. Secondly, if done, whether against the law or not against the law, or consistent with the law. The former, which is called a question of fact, and the latter, a question of right. What's the difference between fact and right? If it's not against the law, that's your rights. The laws say you can't do this, you can't do that, but where it doesn't say what you can't do, but it also gives you your rights and freedoms. So in the English Bill of Rights and the American Bill of Rights and the Colorado's Bill of Rights, it says you're allowed to petition, you're allowed to remonstrate, you're allowed to speak, you're allowed to religion, you're allowed to peacefully assemble, you're allowed to bear arms in defense of home, person, and property, or to aid in the civil authority. But you can't conceal that weapon. Therefore, unless the parties to the question covenant mutually to stand to the sentence of another, they are as far from peace as ever. This other to whose sentence they submit is called an arbitrator, and therefore it's the law of nature that they are at controversy submit their right to the judge of an arbitrator. So, yeah, it does make sense that we want to resolve these disputes. We want to resolve these disputes. So if both parties actually, admire Jesse Jackson, and Jesse Jackson can get in there and, work some kind of deal out where nobody's going to be perfectly happy with the thing, but if it settles the conflict, because these fucking wars could spill over, right? Isn't that what Talgayita taught us? 17th law, no man is his own judge. It's kind of prima facie, obvious on its face, and seeing every man is presumed to do all things in order to his own benefit, no man is a fit arbitrator in his own cause. And if he were never so fit, yet equity allowing to each party equal benefit, if one be admitted to be judge, the other is to be admitted also, and so the controversy that is the cause of war remains against the law of nature. So, hey, I'll judge myself here, okay? No, I'm going to judge myself, and I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It makes sense that no man can be his own judge in a controversy or a conflict. The 18th law of nature is that no man to be judged that has in him a natural cause of partiality or conflict of interest. But they're basically saying if you're just a biased motherfucker, you just pick who you think is more attractive. I think you're pretty and you are not, so Mr. Pretty, you win. And Miss Ugly, you get the hell out of here. No man to be judged that has in him a natural cause of partiality. For the same reason, no man in any cause ought to be received for arbitrators to whom greater profit or honor or pleasure apparently ariseth out of the victory of one party than of the other, for he hath taken, though an unavoidable bribe, yet a bribe, and no man can be obliged to trust him, and thus also the controversy and the condition of war remaineth contrary to the law of nature. So if the judge is going to get pleasure, yes, right, out of what, throwing Nelson Mandela into prison forever, well, that wasn't a fair judge. You got pleasure out of the thing. Really, a good judge would just be like, I don't want to deal with you, or I don't want to deal with your side. Get on this omnibus thing, fill out these forms, Come on, let's have ourselves a nice, smooth process here, okay? Also, and thus also the controversy and the condition of war remains. The laws of nature are immutable and eternal, for injustice, ingratitude, arrogance, pride, inequity, exception of persons, and the rest can never be made lawful. For it can never be that war shall preserve life and destroy, and peace destroy it. Right. So he's saying the laws of nature are eternal. War always kills life, and peace preserves life. So he's saying injustice, ingratitude, arrogance, pride, inequity, exception of persons, and the rest can never be made lawful. You can be proud. Pride, you could always take things in moderation. I think things are fine. Arrogance is bullshit. Ingratitude, injustice, that's interesting. Ingratitude, I gave you that thing and you didn't say thank you. This means war. Of course, this means war. The execution of Charles I by beheading occurred on Tuesday, January 30th, 1649, outside the banqueting hall on Whitehall. The banqueting house on Whitehall. Right. So he got his head chopped off, and then Hobbes was like, look, guys, look at all the rights that we had under King Charles I. We had the right to defend ourselves. We had a right to justice. We had a right to look at all these rights. He was the right to pardon and the right to look at all these rights. Poor Hobbes was a conservative of the Enlightenment. And he might be the only conservative that I give any credence to. But combine those laws of nature with the English Bill of Rights, and I think that'll give us a nice foundation for what the hell the U.S. Constitution and the Colorado Constitution is even talking about when it comes to natural rights.